Hello everyone, welcome to WGBS TV Live, brought to you by SupermanHomepage.com, the #1 Superman fan site in the world. My name is Steve Eunice. In this, our April 21st, 2020 show, we're going to be covering a range of topics, including what's happening with some of the conventions. We're going to be talking about some of the things that fans have been put together, and we're going to be talking to latest updates on the comic book situation. Now, you'll notice that I haven't got my co-host with me at the moment, just having a few issues with Skype, but Michael is waiting patiently for me to get him on, and I will bring him in quite shortly. Just bear with me as we try to get this sorted out. But in the meantime, if you do want to get involved in tonight's show, and we might have time in the second half of our program to get to callers, then you need to use Skype, which we are doing right now, and I will get Michael on to explain how you get involved in tonight's show, and that is happening as we speak. So Michael should be with me in a second. Just here he is. Welcome, Michael Bailey. Hey, Mike.
Was I that late?
No, my fault. No, Skype was just playing up on me, having a few issues. I just did the introduction and let people know that they can get involved in tonight's show, and you're about to tell them how.
Oh, it's really simple, folks, because WGBS Live is all about Superman, and thus we want to hear from the Superman fans that are watching us live on YouTube. So, to do that, and if we do it, it's going to be about halfway through the show. We actually have stuff to talk about this week because there's an actual Superman comic coming out on Wednesday. But to do that, you're going to need Skype. Go to Skype, find Superman homepage, message us that you'd like to be on the show, and wait. Now, a couple things. If we message us, don't just call us because that can screw things up. And if we do have you on the show and you're watching WGBS Live and using an external speaker, please turn that off or down because we are on a bit of a delay, and because of that, it can screw things up a bit.
Yes, indeed. And as I get myself back on screen, things are just playing really slow here tonight, but want to thank everyone who's watching live via YouTube, and if you are watching live via YouTube, then participate in the comments. We want to hear from you. Get involved, ask questions, make comments. Michael and I will react to those as the show goes on, and we want to thank our sponsors and patrons, Douglas Meacham, John Patrick Van Pelt, and Tina Murray. We appreciate your support. Sorry, Mike, that was a bit of a mixed up intro, getting you on. I know you were a little bit late, but I was even later. And how have you been?
Oh, just life in the well, actually, I can't say this for too much longer. We were under a shelter in place, and now our governor of the state I'm in has decided now we're going to open back the restaurants and all the other places. So it's I'm a little concerned, but I'm excited to be here talking about Superman.
Does seem a little bit premature, doesn't it?
It's extremely premature. I could go into why, but this isn't a political show.
Yeah.
So we're just gonna skip all of that.
Okay, yeah. Let's push on and do what we like to talk about, and that is Superman news. And being the fact that most places are in lockdown and most fans are trying to fill in their time and figure out things to do and be creative, a couple of fans have taken to creating videos and doing deep fake things and putting trailers together. And one in particular did a trailer of a possible live action Kingdom Come movie. And it's possible at the moment to put that kind of a trailer together because a lot of the live action shows and movies and things that have been happening around about DC Comics have alluded to the Kingdom Come Superman, with Brandon Routh having played the character in the recent Crisis on Infinite Earths crossover. So we're going to play a little bit of the trailer that was put together by YouTube creator Dr. Flashpoint. Check it out. Yeah, I know. Here is the what he calls the Kingdom Come fan trailer.
All that you know is at an end.
The imminent destruction of everything we know and love.
A reject from Gotham played what he called a practical joke and gassed the building. I lost everyone in one fell swoop.
We need you, and maybe you need us. They said the age of heroes would never come again. The others, where are they?
You're no hero. You're just a clown.
So there you have it. There's just part of the trailer created by Dr. Flashpoint, YouTube creator, who did a pretty good job of doing that. That looks pretty impressive.
Yeah, we're at a point where the HD grabs that you can get from video is, we're at the point where it all looks good. It's like, 20 years ago, people would cobble these things together, and it would be impressive for what they had at the time, but it would always be like a little herky-jerky. Something would be kind of fuzzy. But now, even the thing of John Wesley Shipp as the Kingdom Come Flash with the red special effect, it looked pretty good for what it was.
Yeah, and in lieu of anything official from Warner Brothers for upcoming Superman-related movies, we are looking at what fans are putting together and doing in regards to, the really creative things that they are able to do with computers in this day and age.
Yeah, it never underestimate the ability for fans to make something that doesn't exist. Though I guess the flip side to that is the people that remake something because they didn't like it. But people have been doing that for years. I remember about 2004, 2005 going to conventions, and there would be the phantom edit of episode 1 where they basically completely removed Jar Jar Binks. And I never bought one because I just didn't care. But, it's just like, we are a feisty and creative crowd. And if you give us the ability to make the stuff ourselves, whether it's through these videos, whether it's through fan fiction, we're going to do it. And some of it's actually really good.
Well, showcasing what fans are able to do, we've showcased a number of Jarkins videos, the deepfake Tom Welling stuff a couple of weeks ago, and he's back at it with, the Justice League, Henry Cavill, removal of the moustache. There's been a lot of debate over this one. This one actually exploded our website when it went up. We were getting hits like 4 to 5 times what we usually get, just because of this one video. And I'm going to play the second half of it because the first half, the second half shows you his comparison of what he did compared to what Warner Brothers did as far as putting Henry Cavill's face correctly in this opening scene of the Justice League movie. Check it out.
Superman, can we ask you some questions? It's for our podcast.
Well, in that case,
How many people that you saved have you saved? Wait, never mind. Does your thing really stand for hope?
Yes, it does.
But it looks like an S.
Yes, it's meant to. It's meant to wind like a river. It comes and goes. A man I knew used to say that hope is like your car keys. Easy to lose, but if you dig around, it's usually close by.
Did you ever fight a hippo? No, that's not hippos are the most deadly.
So there you have it. That's just part of the video there. Look, I was impressed. I thought he did a much better job of creating Henry Cavill's face. Obviously, he's done more. There's some extra detail, if you like, in the eyes, and there's probably a bit more high definition in that area compared to the rest of the video. But considering what he had to work with, I've got to say that it's an improvement on what Warner Brothers did. I know that it's not perfect because there's some coloring and lighting issues, but if you had seen that when you stepped into the cinema, you would not have ever known that there was anything to speak about, let alone what we saw with what they did create.
Yeah, there is a sort of uncanny valley to what we actually got in that movie, where I think even if you didn't know that there was an issue, that there's just something off with the way his face looks. It also, watching that video though, and I can't believe I've never really noticed this before, or maybe I did and I just forgot. That costume was never meant to be lit brightly. Just the way it was meant, because you could tell, and maybe I'm wrong about this, but with the way the blues are lighter in parts of it, that to me is a costume that is meant to be lit dark in a more subdued, for lack of a better term, Zack Snyder color washing out. So it almost looks like he's wearing pajamas when it's really lit brightly. Like when he's in the Apocalypse or the Steppenwolf fight, it looks pretty good because everything's kind of dark around him. But that's a brightly lit, sunny day, and that was weird.
Yeah, but again, it just goes to show what fans can do with their home computer with some software for a shoestring budget. And that probably didn't take him any longer than what the guys at Warner Brothers had. Yes, we're talking about a film that was a couple of years ago now, and software does advance pretty quickly in this day and age. But I've got to say, I think they messed up.
Yeah, they didn't do a good job with it, and it seemed almost spiteful.
Yes.
Like they wouldn't let Henry shave, so we're going to take it out on the audience. I don't know how that works.
No, because Anyway, we're still talking about Justice League well after its release, but probably for the wrong reasons. I wish we'd been speaking about it in more positive terms for better reasons. But it is what it is, and again, here we're just showcasing what fans are able to do, and I think it bodes well for upcoming fan films and things like that, where, we can, we might be able to see fan films created with a stand-in actor, but then a deep fake face of, say, Henry Cavill or Christopher Reeve or Brandon Routh or somebody put in its place. That would be really interesting.
It would, but it's also a little creepy.
Yeah, well, for Christopher Reeve, it would be creepy.
I think Rogue One, the Star Wars film, kind of played around with that by having a computer-generated Grand Moff Tarkin to look like Peter Cushing, and you had the young Princess Leia at the end. I don't know. I think the danger, because there's not really a danger here, but I think the danger there is, how do we evolve if we just, if a studio knows that a Christopher Reeve Superman might do well, we're never going to get a new generation's version of Christopher Reeve.
Yeah.
So it would be cool in terms of what I think would be cool would to be do a short where it's a Justice League, but it's Linda Carter, Adam West, and Christopher Reeve. That would be kind of cool because that's kind of a kitschy thing.
Yeah, it's tribute.
You're putting people. Yeah, you're putting people who were contemporaries of each other, even though Adam West was kind of pushing it. But you could have them working together, but not like a new thing where it's Christopher Reeve.
Yeah, it's going to be an interesting, couple of years ahead when we have this technology that just keeps evolving, where fans are able to do things that they've never been able to do, and that Hollywood was pushing the boundaries to do with multi-million-dollar budgets.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and that's the thing is that's where at this point, I don't buy it when a studio says we just couldn't do it, or that's the best we could do, because we know that's not true.
Yeah, 100%. All right, well, that's the extent of our movie news. There isn't really anything else to talk about on the movie front, other than the fact that we know that there are animated films coming out. I saw today one of the spokespeople for Warner Brothers talking about that, there's going to be years ahead of Warner Brothers Animation about, animated movies. So, that there's nothing to worry about there. We do know that we've got Justice League Dark, the Apocalypse War coming up, and after that, Superman, the Man of Tomorrow, an original animated movie story, and then whatever they've got planned beyond that. But they will continue to do animated films for release on Blu-ray and DVD, and sometimes theatrical releases as well.
I think the one after Superman, the Man of Tomorrow, I know it's a bit of a stretch, and it will be a daring move on DC's part. I think it's going to be a Batman one.
No, really?
Just a hunch. Just a hunch.
All right, well, let's turn to the television side of things, and there was very little to talk about up until today when Jon Cryer did this interview with People TV's couch surfing video thing that they do, interview segments, and it was a social distancing one because he was in his house, they were in their place, and he spoke about all these, with the whole couch surfing idea is that they go through the person's history of their career and some of the roles they've played. And with Jon Cryer, they touched on him playing Lenny Luthor in Superman 4, The Quest for Peace, and he spoke about some of the practical special effects they did there, and how, having spoken to Christopher Reeve after the film was shot, how he was disappointed, saying the thing's a mess. So, and having had a role in writing the script for the movie, it's interesting to hear Chris's perspective from Jon Cryer, saying that he knew things weren't going well because of the fact that the production company pretty much ran out of money a month into production, as far as Jon Cryer tells in this interview. But then he goes on to speak about the Supergirl television show, his role as Lex Luthor in that, and what's happening with season 5, especially considering the finale and how they've only shot parts of the finale, but because they can't go back because of COVID-19 and everything that's happening there, stopping production, the writers have had to come up with a more creative way to end the season. And here's what he had to say as I try to find the part of the video about that. So just bear with me as I get through it.
Try and look like a guy who's been experienced is much closer to the guy in the comic books. And they let me do Crisis on Infinite Earths, which was, and I felt like such a nerd because I wasn't originally supposed to be in it. But I literally had to talk to Peter Roth, who's the head of Warner Brothers, and say, hey, I heard you guys are doing Crisis on Infinite Earths. Right. And Lex Luthor's a big part of that in the comic books, so I'm just saying, I'm here, whatever. And that's just humiliating.
Now, are you guys all in touch with each other? I mean, do you know how they're handling any gaps in production caused by the pandemic?
Oh, yes. As a matter of fact, yeah, the Supergirl folks have talked to me because we couldn't shoot our last episode. We had shot some of the last episode, and they're going to use some of that footage, but they're writing a whole bunch of new stuff around it, which is interesting because the way that my character was thwarted now doesn't happen anymore. So I was like, oh, so did I not get defeated? Wait a minute, I like this.
So he talks about the fact that they've had to alter what they had planned for the finale, and now he says, which is interesting because the way my character was thwarted now doesn't happen anymore. So I was like, oh, did I not get defeated? Wait a minute, I like this.
Oh, interesting. It's going to be interesting to see how they pull it off. I know Supergirl is really important. It's important to the actors and the crew and everything, and the people that make money off of the property, and it's important to the fans. But it's just like, I don't know if they're really going to be, if movies are like the first thing we need to, and TV are the first thing we really need to open back up. But yeah, if he's not defeated, kind of opens up a possibility of him being in season 6.
And it sounds, he was wearing a Superman shirt in this interview, so he's sounds like he's on board. He says he's a geek. He's talking about the Crisis on Infinite Earths. So Tina's saying, why have they been holding up the finale? Well, as he just explained there, they had to stop filming production there because of COVID-19, and therefore they're trying to find a way to put everything together. They will have to eliminate some episodes for this season, We do know that the next new episode of Supergirl will air on Sunday, May 3rd, and that the finale will air Sunday, May 17th, which, as we've spoken about before, indicates that instead of getting 22 episodes, we are getting 19 episodes.
Yeah, it happens. I mean, that were back in 2008, Smallville had not season 8, season 6. 7? Which season was Supergirl? That was season 7, wasn't it? Yeah, season 7. Season 7 was the truncated one because of the writer's strike. So, and that they had more of a workaround. I mean, a writer's strike was important, but it's not a pandemic.
Nah.
So.
Exactly. So, yeah, they weren't able to film all of the finale, and so they have come up with a more creative or some other creative way of ending the season 5. And maybe Jon Cryer will return in season 6. We'll just have to wait and see. But yeah, the next new episode, as I said, of Supergirl on the CW, Sunday, May 3rd. So a couple of weeks away until we get new Supergirl episodes. Now, speaking of Jon Cryer, he and a number of other actors who have played villains on various Superman properties trolled the Man of Steel on Twitter this week when Superman celebrated his 82nd year. The anniversary of the release or the publication of Action Comics #1 took place on April 18th this past week. And while everyone went on social media and was spruiking about happy anniversary to the Man of Steel and how great Superman is, well, Jon Cryer and a number of other actors weren't too pleased. They came back with, well, Jon Cryer first came back. He started the whole thing, replying to one particular tweet saying he's not so great. Where is it here? He's got, on April 19th, somebody said, on this day, 1938, the Action Comics #1 debuted and gave us the world's greatest superhero. Happy birthday, Superman. And Jon Cryer goes, he's not so great.
So I am friends, social media-wise, with David Gallagher, whose tweet Jon Cryer responded to. He's a writer. He's written for, I believe, DC and Marvel. He's got a really neat series called The Only Living Girl that he does. So it's kind of funny to know somebody that is now a meme, or at least part of a meme. But I saw that, and I'm like, that's funny. I missed the Rosenbaum one. But what slayed me is that Clancy Brown got involved.
Yes, he did. So here's Clancy Brown's one. He seconded what Jon Cryer had to say, which is pretty funny. And for those who don't know Clancy Brown, you'll probably recognize his face there. He's been in a number of great movies, including The Shawshank Redemption. But he was the voice of Lex Luthor in a number of properties, but most famously in Superman the Animated Series. And then, as you said, Michael Rosenbaum also got involved. And down the bottom there, he replied to Jon Cryer's tweet saying, agreed. In fact, Superman's quite a dick. And then we also had another actor get involved, Sam Witwer, who most recently played Agent Liberty on Supergirl and has obviously previously played Davis Bloom, aka Doomsday, on the Smallville TV series. He got involved saying, also, we don't like his cousin, also aliens.
I didn't see that. That's great. I am in love with that tweet. Yeah, it's just this is the good part of social media. Like we get tired of the trolling and the hashtags and the hashtag bombing of things that don't need that hashtag. Like, if we're talking about COVID-19, we don't really need release the Snyder Cut. So maybe I'm wrong on that. But I just love that these things happen and we get to kind of see it in real time. Fun fact about Shawshank Redemption, by the way. Clancy Brown did play the guard. I forget what his character's name was. But there was another actor in the movie that played one of the sisters, as they called them. He was the guy that at one point Clancy Brown just beats mercilessly. He is the voice of Lex Luthor. Mark Ralston is the voice of Lex Luthor on the Injustice games.
Cool.
So next time you watch Shawshank Redemption, realize you're watching Lex Luthor. The voice of Lex Luthor beat the voice of Lex Luthor. He was also on an episode of Lois and Clark in the second season too. But this is just how my brain works.
Yeah. And if you're not aware, as an avid Stephen King fan, Shawshank Redemption was a novel written by Stephen King. Shawshank Redemption and the Rita Hayworth
Rita Hayworth and the Shawshank Redemption. Yeah, it was one of the novellas. It's interesting because sometimes Stephen King's books are better than the movies.
Yeah.
And sometimes they're just as good. Morgan Freeman's character in the book or the novella is a white guy with red hair.
Yeah, he's Scottish. So, that's why his name's Red.
Yeah, it's just like, and he makes that joke, like maybe it's because I'm Irish, and I just, it's just one of those things where, and sometimes with Stephen King, since we're on this tangent, sometimes the novella, like The Body, which was made into Stand By Me, starring Superman, Jerry O'Connell.
Yep.
And Will Wheaton, who was also in that movie, was in Crisis on Infinite Earths. There are parts of that story in the novella that really are just boring because they actually go into one of Gordon, the main character's, like, one of his stories. And it's just like, I really just want to get back to the kids. Because that's why I'm here. And it's just like one of those things where, the movie did kind of a better job of telling the story than the prose.
And the other connection, River Phoenix, the brother of Joaquin Phoenix, who played the Joker. And obviously played Superboy.
I was about to say, he was on an episode of Superboy.
Well, it comes back to Superman.
It really does. I mean, I could go on with everything, but I'm not.
So yeah, that was really cool to see some of those actors trolling Superman. And in the comments, Justin's asking, did anyone watch Red Sun yet? Yes, I finally sat down and watched
you have
Superman. I did, yes. I sat down and watched it a couple of days ago. Superman Red Sun, awesome. I absolutely loved it. I thought it was a really good adaptation. It's obviously not identical to the comic book story written by Mark Miller, but it was well done, emotional. I thought the voice acting was well done. The animation was pretty good. And all in all, I quite enjoyed it. My wife was kind of sitting on the couch, not watching it with me, but couldn't help glancing up every now and then to kind of pay attention to what was going on. It is more adult than some of the earlier animated movies. Obviously, there's some adult content in there. Nothing drastic, nothing severe. I mean, Lois doesn't give anybody the finger, but there is. It's more geared to a more mature audience.
Okay, so this is what's going to happen. I'm going to actually watch it this week.
Okay.
I'll make time.
Yep.
And we can spend, like, since we're really struggling for content, we can actually, like, do a deep dive into it. Next week.
Cool.
And have that be, like, part of the show. So I'll definitely get it watched. I just haven't. It's so weird here, Steve. It's so weird. It's so weird going out into the world every day and, like, people just coming in. Like, today I was sitting there, somebody kept lowering their mask as they were talking to me, and I'm like, this completely defeats the purpose of the mask. So when I come home, I'm like, I just want to sit here and do nothing.
Fair enough. Anthony in the comments saying that he felt the animated movie was too rushed. Again, you can never flesh out a full comic book graphic novel into a, what are they now, 90-minute animated movie. They've got to always cut things down or cut things out and try to make it more of a succinct story. Tina's saying it's weird, Lois dating Lex. I mean, this is an alternate version of the Superman story. It's not a Superman story that you would expect to see because it is an Elseworld. What would happen if Superman landed in Russia? So everything else is thrown out the window. The fact that they are able to use these characters like Lois, Lex, Jimmy, total different spin on Jim, and use some of the well-known traits of Superman stories, things like look up in the sky and those kinds of things, I thought were well done, because it is an Elseworld story. It is not the typical Superman story you come to expect.
Yeah, and I honestly think that most of the time a straight-up adaptation wouldn't work or wouldn't go as well. Because comics are a very specific medium, and the way you tell stories in comics is completely different from how you tell a story in animation or live action. Just because you're dealing with a series of static images, and the fact that they're able to tell these, when it's done right, it tells a story in such a way that your mind fills in a lot of the gaps. Yeah. Scott McCloud goes into this in his book, Understanding Comics. And because of that, you have a chance to kind of take the spirit of the story and the major beats of the story, but make it into a film. The fact that the Reign of the Superman film was so good, and it didn't do a straight-up adaptation, but it had enough of the heart of that story and the characters and getting them right, that I think you really just... It's just better to not go in wanting a straight-up adaptation, because you're always going to be disappointed.
John's asking, was this animated movie something that was based on, that happened in real life? The only parts that happen in real life is that, yes, Stalin was a leader of Russia. There was the whole Cold War thing between the US and Russia. So it is kind of set in a historical element of world history, but obviously no baby landed from Krypton in Russia. But yeah, Stalin and some of those elements of the story are based in reality.
Yeah. And Mind the Gap mentions that there was no way a Death of Superman adaptation needs a redheaded Lex Luthor and Matrix Supergirl. And that's something I've been saying for years. I had a friend read Death of Superman like back in 2012. She kept messaging me. She's like, I'm reading it. I'm like, okay, good luck. And like she gets halfway through the story. She's like, why is Supergirl made of putty? And I'm like, okay, here we go. And that's why it's amazing that story is still, churned out and read by new readers who have no context for you on why Lex Luthor looks like a redheaded Amish person using, as you have pointed out on many an occasion, Australian lingo that went out in like the 60s.
Indeed. Justin asking, is there a merge happening between DC and Marvel? Rumors on the internet. There's no merger as far as the companies. I think what you're referring to is there's people talking about we need to see a crossover happen between DC and Marvel to try to ignite the comic book industry once things go back to some kind of normal life again. So there, we had the DC versus Marvel thing back in the 90s.
1996, excuse me.
Yes.
It was 96.
Actually, I've got one of the posters of the whole crossover thing on my wall. And there's talk of people talking about that's what we need to spark the industry, is to see a DC Marvel crossover, as in a comic book story, a miniseries or something like that, but no company-wide merger, nothing like that. Yeah,
you're not gonna. If that happened, it would be the worst thing for both companies. Because with Marvel and DC being kind of the lead dogs, and I'm not trying to discount like Dark Horse or Image or Boom Studios or any of the other studios or publishers, because we need a good, healthy kind of independent market, and we need different voices. But DC and Marvel are the industry leaders. But they are only as good, and Jeff Loeb talked about this once in an interview on Word Balloon, they are only as good as when the other person is doing well. So you want that kind of competition, because that sparks both of them to try to do their best to kind of outdo the other person. If you merge those two worlds apart together, one doesn't work. You cannot have Superman work the way Superman is supposed to work in the Marvel universe unless you want the new 52 back.
That's true.
It may sound snarky,
No, you're right.
But I'm not wrong on that. So yeah.
Yeah. All right, we're just over the halfway mark of tonight's program, so we're going to take a quick break, play some messages, and then come back and talk about what is happening with the comic book side of the world of Superman. Back soon, right after these messages. Don't go anywhere.
We'll be back in a moment with the exciting climax of today's episode. So stand by.
Look, up in the sky.
It's a bird.
It's a plane. No, it's SupermanHomepage.com, the #1 Superman fan site in the world. SupermanHomepage.com, covering the world of Superman from the 1930s to today. News, reviews, rumors, and reports. SupermanHomepage.com for all your Superman comics, TV shows, movies, cartoons, radio shows, and more. Everything you ever wanted to know about the Man of Steel and more. SupermanHomepage.com.
Thanks, Superman Homepage, for all the support over the years. I really appreciate it.
I'm Matt Bomer. I'm the voice of Superman and Superman Unbound, and this is the Superman Homepage.
Right here on Superman Homepage.
Lois Lane and Jimmy Olsen have been kidnapped. Who will save the day? You are Superman. All the powers are yours. Flight, heat vision, super speed, super strength, freezing breath, and X-ray vision. Buy early and receive a DC Comics Collector's Edition Superman comic book. Superman, the New Adventures video game.
The infamous N64.
That commercial is writing checks that game is not going to be able to cash.
And speaking about video games, the background behind me is from a never-made Superman video game, which just quickly, it was a concept art that was released this week from artist Joel Dos Reis Villegas. I'm probably mispronouncing that, eating it up. But he released that image behind me, which I will bring up for you right now in full. It was found on his personal website, listed under Batman games, but a gallery there. But it's obviously there, Superman flying over the city of Metropolis. And it was rumoured a couple of years ago that Warner Brothers Montreal were working on a Superman video game, but with Rocksteady or something like that. But nothing ever came to light, and no game ever eventuated. So, but that's a nice looking image there, which is why I use it as my background for tonight's show.
Yeah, it's pretty slick. I would argue that Shadow of Apocalypse is probably in the modern era the best straight up Superman game that we've got.
Would agree.
It was fun to play. It had a lousy ending. I was really disappointed. It's just like, all right, Darkseid's in the background, and at the end of the game, you still haven't fought him.
So, that's the background that I'm using tonight. But as we promised before the break, comic books. As you know, in late March, Diamond Comic Distributors announced that they were closing down their warehouses because of COVID-19, and therefore no new comic books would be reaching comic book stores if they were open for the immediate future. So DC Comics announced this week that new comic books will once again be available in stores from Tuesday, April 28th. Now, I don't know of any actual comic book stores that are currently open, but if they are, then new comic books will be available April 28th because they've organised shipping through 2 new distributors. The deal will see DC use Luna Distribution and UCS Comic Distributors, who are sister companies of both Discount Comic Book Services and Midtown Comics respectively. Now, what does all that mean? Well, it means that new comic books will be in stores as of Tuesday, April 28th, for sale, I'm guessing, on Wednesday, April 29th. For Superman fans, there are no new actual physical comic books released on that date. The books that were supposed to ship Justice League number 44 and Lois Lane number 10 are scheduled to ship on May 12th. So, but these books will be available digitally on April 29th.
Yeah, when I saw the two companies that were basically coming together to form a new distribution chain, Discount Comic Book Service makes the most, them being involved makes the most sense, because they already kind of have an infrastructure in place for that, because they also own in-stock trades. So you have a company that has already built a engine essentially to get comics to customers. So now they're just kind of cutting out the middleman of having to deal with Diamond, probably. I don't know how their business worked. And Midtown Comics has been around for decades. So this is actually might be a silver lining to this whole thing for the comic book industry, because having spoken to many comic book store owners over the years, and especially the two that are closest to me in the area, Diamond is a horror show sometimes. That you are completely dependent on one company to get the bulk of what you sell in your store. And it would be back in the 80s and going into the 90s, you had regional distributors, and you had a lot of competition. So if you weren't getting your comics or satisfied with the service from Diamond, you could go to Capital City. And then slowly they all started to die out. There were real life, just general evolution of the business reasons for that, but also Marvel at one point in 1995, going into 1996, decided, hey, we're going to distribute our own books. And it was an unmitigated disaster. But what that did was comic book stores who order from Diamond, for example, they get a discount based on the number of books that they order. When you eliminate Marvel from that equation, their discount decreases, and they're having to pay two different distributors to ship their books, which increases their costs. So it's like having one distributor for the entire country has some upsides, but the downside is if their service is terrible, you've got nowhere to go.
Yeah, and in response to this, Diamond came back with a statement of their own saying that they value their partnership with DC and will continue to support them as a distributor. But obviously their focus at the moment is getting products in the hands of fans as quickly and as safely as possible. And it says, as we shared this morning with our vendors and retailers, we are currently building our restart plans and targeting mid to late May to begin shipping new products weekly. There's going to be watch this space kind of interesting dynamic happening here. If you're interested in that kind of thing, as fans who just like to read comic books, most of them won't care. They'll just want to know whether new comic books are available. And in that vein, DC Comics made a pretty big announcement today about the expansion of their DC Digital First and the addition of their DC Essential Reads programs. And why is that important as a Superman fan? Well, there's a new comic book out now, today, for Digital First, from that Digital First program, and it's called Superman Man of Tomorrow. It's a one-shot story written by, I'm trying to find the details here, Robert Venditti. And I haven't downloaded it yet, but I think this is an awesome new kind of plan from DC, considering that a lot of fans can't physically get to comic book stores at the moment, and a digital first thing that will later then be available in a physical copy, I think is a great concept.
Yeah, I think that's reprinting the first story from the new Walmart edition, because it has because he fought the Parasite in that first issue, and it was really good. It's a great Superman story, and it's because I'm not really giving anything away. You really see the humanity of Superman as he's going up against the Parasite. So Venditti really has a good handle on him, and the artwork by Paul Pelletier is fantastic. So
here we have the comic book cover, Superman Man of Tomorrow, Power Play, Superman up against Parasite. Now I've got some of the internal pages here, so you can tell me, having read the Walmart story, if this is looking familiar to you as the story that you read back in that Walmart comic book. It is?
Yeah, that's it.
Okay. So there you have it. That's what it is.
Yeah, that is definitely it.
Okay. So that's the DC Digital First, Superman, the Man of Tomorrow, also Batman Gotham Knights, and Wonder Woman Agent of Peace, Aquaman Deep Dives, Flash Fastest Man Alive, DC Superhero Girls Infinite Frenemies, and Swamp Thing The New Roots are all part of that run. And then they've also announced on Monday they're launching DC Essential Reads, a free digital promotion providing first issues of some of the most iconic graphic novels and collected editions in the DC library. What do you make of this?
Look, the first one's always free. Use it as a loss leader. I think it's the best thing they could do to get people to want to read their books. Because I think we have moved away to a large extent, I think. Now, I could be wrong about this. Maybe this is because I'm kind of out of the game. But it seems like readership has moved away from comics as like a collectible. Like, you collect comics, but for a while there, it seemed like, man, like when Star Wars #1 hit from Marvel back in 2015, there were like 17 variants of the first issue with covers, and I think people aren't really into that now. It was an incentive for comic stores. It's a way for them to make some extra revenue. It was a way to incentivize them to order more copies. But I think now media in general is more consumed. I never want physical media to go away. I will hang on to certain things to my dying day. Hopefully that won't be anytime soon. But I don't mind having a digital library of stuff that I don't physically own that I can just read when I want to read it. And if I want one of those, I can find a physical copy of it. But you've got to get people reading first. So having the first issue of Sandman, the first issue of Dark Knight Returns, the first issue, I'm just using the examples of the covers they showed in the graphics. Having the first issue of Watchmen, what you're giving them is like, ooh, I want to read the rest of that, so you'll pay for it at that point.
You're hooking them in. And yeah, I think it's an interesting dynamic about whether or not fans are consumers or collectors.
Yeah, I mean, and you can get into real nerdy fights about it, and people can be a bit pretentious on both sides of the angle. Like, some people are like, oh, you keep your comics, I just read them, and, when I'm done with them, I'm done with them. And then there are people that are like, like that guy that took a picture in front of all of his DVDs going, Netflix doesn't have it? Haha, I do. And yeah, I'm really kind of right in the middle of that. Like, I want stuff that I want, but I don't want to having sold tens of thousands of comics in the past year, I don't need that in my house.
No, you're right, and I'm with you. There are certain things that I like to collect, and I like to have physical versions of, especially with certain books. Like, I like to have, a collection of Stephen King, collection of Dean Koontz, collection of, certain other authors that I'm a fan of. And then there are other ones that I'm just happy to have on my Kindle because I'm not a collector of those necessarily. I just like to read their stories. And so I kind of took that turn a couple of years back with comic books, where I got to the point where, I collected so many along the way, but now I'm just a fan of reading the stories. I don't necessarily need to have a physical version of the copy with me. But if there's a Superman novel that comes out, like, Death of Superman, for instance, I'll want it in a physical copy. I won't necessarily just want a digital download of it. So, and there's something for that, because as people are finding out with some of the, subscription services, digital subscription services, if they go the way of the dodo, then you've got nothing left of all that money that you spent, to show for it.
Yeah, but I think to me, that is sort of like, I don't know if it's adjusted for inflation. It might be. That's kind of like people who used to go to the theater all the time to watch movies because they were, you didn't have, pay channels where you could watch newer movies, or you didn't have VHS or then DVD and then Blu-ray. You're always running into that danger that something will just that it could just go away. Or like years ago, Amazon had a thing where they didn't have the rights to digitally sell a copy of 1984, so they just took it back from people, which it's kind of ironic when you think it's like of all the titles, it had to be 1984. You see, it's why I fully support when people are like, I want physical media. I'm like, great, if you have the money and the resources and the storage space for it, I wish you the best. But I think to a certain extent, and this is a weird part for me personally, like it not being available sometimes bugs me, but sometimes it's like, I'll go find something else. If like tomorrow Comixology went away and all the books that I've bought on Comixology I can no longer access through my iPad, I'll be like, that sucks. I'll go find something else to do. So
yeah, well, I mean, I guess in a way you paid for it, you read it. How often do you go back and reread them?
Yeah, and like today, DC's got a really good sale going, where not only are like their first volumes of a bunch of different series cheaper, some of them are like $1. So let's say you pick up the Bronze Age Swamp Thing Volume 1 for $1, and you read that. For $1, you got like 8 issues, probably somewhere around there, 8 to 10 issues of a book, and you just paid $1 for it. So it's and Marvel had some books free today. So I'm like, okay, I'll get that. So if I read this and then I enjoy it, I have literally wasted no money.
Yep, no, very good point. Now, speaking of physical copies of books, the collected edition of something just fell off your shelf.
Apparently, I just don't know what it is.
Don't you hate when that happens? You're like searching around, looking for what action figure, you just don't know.
No, none of my action figures have committed suicide. They sometimes do.
Yeah, take a leap off the shelf. Yeah.
Yeah.
Superman Smashes the Klan, the graphic novel by Jean Lewin Yang, is set to hit stores everywhere books are sold on May 12th. And DC, to announce this, put together a really cool trailer. Check it out. This is the trailer for the upcoming release of the collected edition of Superman Smashes the Klan.
In 1946, the Superman radio show aired The Clan of the Fiery Cross, a story where the Man of Steel defends a Chinese-American family against a group of hooded racists. Clan of the Fiery Cross. This story made me love Superman because I realized that he is the product of 2 different cultures, just like me. I'm Jean Lewin Yang, and it's my hope that this story will inspire us all to rise up, and away.
Tune in tomorrow, same time, same station.
So there you have it. That was a little trailer they put together to promote the upcoming graphic novel release of Superman Smashes the Klan on May 12th.
You know what they should have done with this?
Mm-hmm.
They should have created, because it would only be like an hour and a half or so, they should have cleaned up the audio of the radio series. And when you buy the book, you have a download code where you can go and get the radio episodes and just like a download of an MP3 of it. Because they're 12 minutes a piece. So it's not like you're buying an entire season of a television series. Maybe I'm just pie in the sky thinking there, but
no, that
would
would
have
be
made
cool.
me really happy.
Yeah, I mean, obviously this book is inspired by that. It's not a direct adaptation of the radio series episodes titled Superman, the Clan of the Fiery Cross. But it would have been cool to be able to introduce new fans to the radio series. But I guess the trick there is that because they're in the public domain now, there's actually no incentive for DC to release to give you a taste of that.
Yeah, that is the kind of the downside. I mean, it's the upside is you can go to archive.org and download the entire series that's available. I mean,
and you should.
And it takes and you should. If you're like me, you will then spend hours cleaning up the names of the files and creating albums in iTunes and stuff like that so it plays correctly. Anal retentive is hyphenated, but I know it is, and they did release, like back in the late 90s and the early 2000s, they released a nice box set of the first batch of episodes, and then the Batman Superman crossover, which led into the Atom Man versus Superman. They had really nice booklets and interviews, but it's just I want more people to listen to the insanity and awesomeness that was the Superman radio series. Folks, if you've never heard it, realize that even though these people worked together for 10 years, no one trusts each other at the Daily Planet.
Yeah, they're always trying to outdo each other for stories.
Or Clark will say, well, Chief, it's this. Well, how do you know that? I don't believe you at all. It's like, well, look at my clip file. I mean, I've turned it up. Whatever, Chief.
Just quickly before we wrap up the show, unfortunately, due to COVID-19, both San Diego Comic-Con and WonderCon have been just cancelled for 2020. They are scheduled, or rescheduled, if you like. They're just looking ahead now for 2021. We've got San Diego Comic-Con scheduled to take place July 22nd to 25th, 2021, and WonderCon will be scheduled to take place March 26th to March 28th, 2021. So, sad news for people who are looking forward to them, but I guess it's just a sensible thing to do.
Okay, I was laughing during Steve saying, these things were canceled. I wasn't laughing that San Diego and WonderCon were canceled. I'm laughing at what's going on in the Flash chat. Because somebody just asked me to explain what radio is to a new generation. So that was what I was chuckling at, not the fact that there's no San Diego Comic-Con this year.
And quickly, be sure to check out the new watch that's come out from Undone. I'm just going to quickly show the graphic here. It's got a Kryptonian decryptor. You can do the alphabet for Krypton and Kryptonian language, and that's pretty cool. So it's on our website as well. Check that out.
It does. It's a handsome looking watch.
All right, well, that's it pretty much for this edition of WGBS TV. I'd like to thank everyone for tuning in to tonight's program. Thank you to everyone on the YouTube live channel there, participating in the show with your comments and questions. We really appreciate your involvement. And thank you to our sponsors and patrons, Douglas Meacham, Tina Murray, and John Patrick Van Pelt. And to you, my co-host, Mr. Michael Bailey. Sorry again for the beginning of the show, but thank you so much.
It happens.
Yeah, it does. And remember, if you want to watch this show back, maybe you missed part of the show, tuned in late or what have you can watch it back in full on YouTube and our website. But Michael and I will be back next week on Tuesday, April 28th for the final episode of April for WGBS TV Live, which means we'll have our regular monthly segments. But until then, be sure to check out supermanhomepage.com for all your daily news updates on everything surrounding the Man of Steel. I'm Steve Younis on behalf of myself and Michael Bailey. Thanks for watching WGBS TV Live, brought to you by supermanhomepage.com.